the timer is a lie because I forgot which channel I was streaming to. I am just going through the last bit of my streaming checklist here. Let's see. What are the chances that my microphone is coming through correctly? Fantastic. Alright. Catching up. Man, it has been a couple of weeks. Cool. We're going to call that good enough. Alright. Hello, and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. The last time I'm plugging along didn't happen because I've been gone on with family visits and travel and all sorts of things for a couple of times. But before that, we were looking at rebuilding Hytbold. However, a release or two has happened while we've been looking at Hytbold, and it's time to go back to the deed tracker plugin. So today we're going to go ahead and look at what changes have come through. Maybe get some audience feedback if some of these are live or not. I'm going to assume most of them are, but it's always nice to double check. And then if we have any time left, we're going to look at some user interface improvements for dtracker as well, or possibly maintenance issues. It only affects me, but making it easier to do these things is always nice. So, as always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, let me drag a couple of windows around. Okay. Is that correct? Let's assume it is. Okay. Yeah, incorporate it in. All right. Cool. So, dtracker. Dtracker is a plugin to track your deeds. It's what it says on the tin. We're going to go ahead and take a look at 3.1.1. This was good for restoration of Gondor. Looks like, however, I've let some of the future changes sneak in here. We can see Western King's Gondor is being displayed, even though that is a bad idea, because we haven't gotten there yet, I think. So we're going to go ahead and, first of all, nip Western King's Gondor out, and then circle back around and see are things working okay enough to commit them. Okay, so there's a lot of changes here. Specific one we're looking for is deed info strings, where we can see, Western King's Gondor got inserted into the lookup table here, and its presence here, would that be enough? Let's take a look. All right, deed info strings. Western King's Gondor. Where is this used? Okay, here it is. In the structure, which defines which tabs go in which pages, or possibly which pages go in which tabs. Hard to keep track of those. We can see Western King's Gondor snuck in there. So we're going to go ahead and comment that out. We can keep the translations. That's fine. And we can keep the index lookup. That should be fine. If that's the case, let's go ahead and reload dtracker. And we can see the Western King's Gondor no longer shows up. Awesome. And we can be happy that that was probably the error message that I saw when I was looking at this. Attempted to load into a current deed a nil value. 947. Does that look familiar? It does not. Okay, let's go look at main win Lua just a moment and make sure I didn't leave anything else dangling. Main win Lua 974. Okay. I'm going to guess that was related and move forward as if that's the case. And if we see that error message again, we'll deal with it then. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the changes that need to be made to catch us up. And actually, I was going to look at one thing off on the side here. I should do that. To see, was there anything that changed deed-wise between 37 and 37.1? Nothing that I need to worry about. Neat. Okay. So, I did some updating of data files before the stream here. So, what do we need? What changes have happened? Well, we've had Gondor renewed. We had update 36.01, 02, 36.1, 36.2, but most importantly, 37, the humble homes of the Hobbitland, and 37.1. Which we just saw didn't have any big changes. So 37 included River Hobbit racial deeds. Also probably included Corsair deeds. Or Mariner. Mariner released yet? Or is that still coming?
The pre-release happened.
Pre-release happened? So is it playable?
I believe so.
Ooh.
The pre-purchase is now.
Yeah. I'm gonna log out here and see if Mariner is live yet. In the meantime, oh, that's gonna take a second to log out, isn't it? Okay. So River Hobbits, I believe, is live. I think Mariner might be, but I want to double check. No sense in incorporating that. I've had a couple of people, myself included, think, hey, if we don't ever do monster play, maybe we can have a checkbox that says, I don't do monster play, and then those things aren't included in the total of what deeds are available. All right, new character. What do we got? Part of the problem of me taking kind of the months of September off is I forget what is changed and what isn't changed. We have a River Hobbit. Excellent. I thought I remembered that releasing. We have a Mariner. Excellent. I haven't unlocked it yet, but I plan to. Fantastic. Reckless confirms also in chat that Mariner is live. Awesome. My goodness. I still feel like it's August. This is disorienting. Fantastic. Okay. Awesome. I'm not going to create a character right now. We'll just come back in with Affodil here, who is dressed up as part of the Rose Company. And Redhead says they've changed the calendar on the wall to October, but it doesn't seem real. Yeah, I get that. We lost a lot of September to travel, to family visiting. Not lost, but it consumed it very handily. And some side projects that weren't LOTRO related. And so, just, yeah. Okay, so, Mariner, so I take some data from the game and I pre-process it to try to exclude deeds that aren't available yet or deeds that maybe no longer exist. And so what I want to do is come back into this and take a look at, well, you know what? We're gonna not to get distracted. To do, we need the Mariner stuff. E37. Added River Hobbit, need Mariner. Do me. Let's see. 92 says. Says, is there a way to make a built-in translator plugin for the chat box, or a plugin that we can implant Google Translate to it? So, Lord of the Rings Online plugins do not have the ability to initiate network connections or access anything outside of the game. So everything has to be self-contained. It is possible for... Ah, cool. The Redhead has pushed a link to the expansion page. It is possible for a plugin to see things that are coming into chat. And it is possible for them to output things either in a new window or to the standard chat. And so it is possible if you had the ability to do localized translations, it is possible to take input and spit in output. However, it is not possible to go off board to something like Google Translate to do it. So if you had a local Lua-based translation system that you could feed text into and get something reasonable out of, you could incorporate that into the game so that anything that comes through chat gets translated, and then you can see kind of you'd be able to see both of them. You'd see the original one going to your chat window, and the modified one going to wherever your whatever window your plugin wants to show it in. However, the trick is doing reasonable translations just with code locally without using any cloud computing. And so it really kind of depends how close the language is to the language of the game that is spitting these things out. If you're looking at, for instance, German game text and you wanted it to translate to something really close to German, you might say Dutch. I'm not sure if that's an actual a good comparison. You might have pretty good luck doing sort of word for word translation because maybe the grammar is similar and you don't have to worry about the grammar. You're just translating each word as it comes. But if you're trying to do grammatical translations as well as words where the structure of the sentence changes, that's not a plugin that I would want to take on because it sounds very complicated. So, but on the other hand, if the things that you're expecting are fixed, like if you want the text that NPCs say into the say channel, if you want that translated, that's actually much easier because you can pre-translate those and say, anytime you see this exact string, give me this exact output. So it does depend. Are you trying to do live translations of possibly random text, or are you trying to do present translations that could have been done ahead of time? One of those is a much easier problem to solve. And so that's the thing that I think some people are interested in is take quest dialogues and pre-translate them and then have a way to present them in-game when you're interacting with that NPC. So for instance, plugins can know that I've just clicked on Edgil. You can't know that I've opened up the dialogue window necessarily, but you can know, oh, you've selected Edgil. So a plugin could present a window that is the Edgil quest window with any of these, so that you can see the translations of any of these. So as you click through to the armory, you would also click through on that other window and say, okay, show me what this is translated into my language. So it's not a drop-in replacement for only showing me the language that I want to see, but it is an interesting thing to pursue with a plugin. So I hope that gives you some context into how plugging in a translator like Google Translate isn't possible, but depending on what your goal is, you can do some translations easier than others. Okay. We need the Mariner. Add new deeds for completing 3 and 6 person delving on that. Yep. That's going in. King's Gondor. Gondor Renewed has been renamed from Renewal of Gondor to Eastern King's Gondor. Okay, that's in there. So, still need Mariner. Okay. We also had some objective change for the Slayer of the Wells of Langflood. I believe they switched from needing the basic to needing the advanced version of the Slayer deeds. Excellent change, very good for consistency, but it does mean we needed to pay attention to that. Du says, I see, thank you. I was hoping for live chat, translating with groups of other nations during raids or instances. Yeah, that is harder. However, we could always, as plugin designers, take inspiration from pre-existing solutions. So for instance, I forget the platform. I think Microsoft's gaming platform used to have a bunch of pre-set chatting options. You couldn't do any chatting, freeform chatting, but you could select from a drop-down of pre-done options. Much like in-game, you can do emotes, /cheer, /charge, these kind of things. And because those are pre-paired, you can also pre-translate them. So when I do /charge, German client players will see the German equivalent of Affadil charges at whoever. And French client players will see the equivalent in French. And so a plugin, if you had the desire to that, you could make a plugin that you distribute to various people that you're gaming with who you don't share a common language with, and that could have a bunch of prepared things to put into chat that are translated across the board. So a German player selects their equivalent of "I'm having a great time" and puts it in there, and your plugin can say, "Oh, so and so said they're having a great time." So if you're willing to narrow the scope down to just a set of prepared ideas, that makes it possible again, or easily possible. Translating on the fly might be possible with Lua. I haven't done any searching to say, hey, Lua libraries that do translation between languages, but one of the things that made translations at scale, like the way Google Translate does, possible is a massive amount of cloud computing power, where you're not just taking the processing power of one computer. You might be taking the processing power of hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of computers to attack this very hard problem, and they still get it wrong all the time. So doing it locally with just one computer, that just sounds like a difficult problem if the domain is they can say anything at all. So yeah, if one of the things I do is I have a setup where I have two monitors. I have the monitor on the right where I have my game. I have the monitor on the left. So it's pretty straightforward for me to copy text in chat, throw it into Google Translate, and then in a second Google Translate window, go the other way, type up my response, and then just copy the response into chat. So I'm going to sound possibly terrible in that language, but I have a general sense of what they said. Maybe they have a general sense of what I'm trying to say. Or everyone just translates incoming languages and they don't bother translating the outgoing language. So everyone sends it out in their own language and receives whatever, copies it into Google Translate. Not everyone is in a position to have two monitors. Either you're on a laptop, or you don't have the money for it, or you don't have the space for it. Totally get it. But if you do have the space for multiple monitors, consider running the LOTRO client in full screen windowed mode, if you like full screen, or just windowed mode, instead of full screen mode, which makes it much harder to which makes it much harder to bip in back and forth between game and not game. If you do end up doing a full screen windowed style mode, or just windowed, then I recommend going into audio and intentionally deciding whether when the game loses focus, you persist the sound, you keep hearing game sound, or you don't hear the game sound. I think the default is you don't hear the game sound, and I find that very not good for me. I much prefer, if the game is running, I can hear the sound even if the game doesn't have focus, because if an orc is attacking me, I would like to know it. Consider if you have, even if you only have a single screen, you can tab back and forth between LOTRO and other things. That's one of the reasons I have full screen windowed. I can go ahead and have other things on this monitor, like you see here. So consider that. Consider just copy text, throw it into Google Translate in a different window. It's not as elegant as a built-in solution, but and it does depend. If every raid you are in, there's someone who's not speaking your language, that becomes a very cumbersome thing. If you're doing this occasionally in world chat or an occasional raid where you do have other people, but most of them you're sharing a common language, then I think it's a reasonable level of effort to have some basic level of communication with someone. Your mileage may definitely vary on that, however. So that's the general idea. I don't know. Let me know. Little Redhead says, yeah, they tend to copy what people say out of chat, put it in a translate in one window, then paste a translated answer back. Absolutely. That's we have a very similar workflow there. Okay. Sometime, like update 36, give or take, it feels like, sometime in the last year, I think, when you escape out of options, at least on my client, there's just maybe a second pause while it does whatever it needs to do. And I don't mind that in general. That seems like a fine solution, except if I go into options and don't change anything. I'd very much like there to be a dirty flag in options that says, oh, I actually need to churn and think about all these things. And if the dirty flag's not set, then I want closing the options to be a no-op. Just it disappears and nothing happens. So anyone from LOTRO SSG is listening, please consider doing that. Okay, so let's go back in to our changes here. So these are all the changes I've made since the last time I did a release, which was a while ago. If we come back to the LOTRO interface page, apparently my cookies have been expiring. Fantastic. Oh, I've got a private message. I'm going to go look at that. Make sure it's not important. Yeah, it's someone asking for a quest tracker. I don't blame them, but that's not a today problem. Awesome. So this was last released a couple of months ago, back in June. My goodness. So these are all the changes that have crept in since then. So, added missing Runekeeper deed. That is one of many things that has happened since then. Let's take a look and do a quick little comparison. So one thing I don't want to care about is white space. So we're going to not worry about minor changes. And we are going to have some context for these. So one of the things when you're doing Lua tables for data is whenever you stick something in, if you were using explicit indices like I was doing here, numerical, 374, 75, 76, 77, if you insert something in the middle of your table, you're going to get a very large diff because every index after that is going to bump up by 1. So when we added this, the path of the restoring rune, which is that missing Runekeeper deed, it bumped everything down below it, which is sad, but inevitable. Okay, what else do we have here? We went ahead and updated renewal of Gondor to be Eastern King's Gondor. That was a post-release change they did, and I wanted my naming to be matching that. We have the River Hobbit racial deeds, enmity of the wolves, wood trolls, orcs, and goblins. There's also Friend of the Forsaken, much like the what's the not high elves?
It's next door.
Hang on. But that's classes. Oh, there's a lot of river hobbits online. That's excellent. Oh, elves and high elves. So much like one of these has a racial deed to getting reputation with Karis Galadin, I believe. Similar to that, Friend of the Forsaken, the river hobbits can go to the Oscuruth and get, as long as you're at least level friend with the Eglain, then you get that deed. Back in there again, I think you have to get to level 125 and then go back to that place they come from. Oh my goodness, everything's out of my head. Lindleby, thank you. Okay. What else? That pushed everything further down, of course. We added in Valor 140, and that brings with it several deeds that give you access to skirmishes. Do asks, what is LOTRO coded in? C++, Java, JavaScript, other things. Is it old code from the 1990s? The short answer is the original core of LOTRO was modified from, I want to say, Asheron's Call. There was a previous game that they were basing a lot of the code, the engine, off of. And this was before the release of LOTRO, which was 16 years ago. So, my goodness. So, a game like this does not come together overnight. I would assume multiple years of development, possibly as much as 5. So sometime in the early to mid-2000s, they would have been putting this together. Games like this at the time were, and I don't have any insider knowledge, so this is all just what I have gleaned. Games like this at the time would have been coded in something like C or C++. Java, in general, at the time, and possibly still, wouldn't have been performant enough to be a full-screen game like this. Same thing with JavaScript. That being said, you mentioned SQL. There's almost certainly databases involved in a game of this scale. I don't know what specific databases they use or what tools they use to manage talking between the programming language and the database, but rest assured, there's almost certainly databases in there. So if it were me, I would expect this was C++ and or C on the engine side of things, making everything run. You say, is it old code from the 1990s? Some of it might be. If you have code that works, there's not a large reason to change it until it stops working. There was an optimization recently to help with performance issues. They were saying that was dealing with low bandwidth connections like the old dial-up modems. And so that code had sat around doing what it was supposed to do for over a decade. And then they decided they didn't need to focus so much on that optimization for dial-up modems because the majority of the player base was using faster connections. Possibly all of the player base at this point. So is there old code from the 1990s? Maybe. Is there old code from the 2000s? Probably. And is there code that's at least 10 years old? I would say almost certainly. But again, I am not an SSG employee and I have no inside knowledge. This is just expectation. You don't rewrite code that works. You don't change code that works. The main goal of writing code in a professional goal like this is maintainability, but also you write the code hopefully once, not over and over and over and over. So if you've written the code and it works and it does what you wanted it to do, you move on. And if you never touch it again, that's a good thing. Assuming it keeps working. So Little Redhead points out Scenario is an SSG employee and he's a world designer, so he doesn't necessarily work on the code side of things, but he builds things on top of the underlying engine, the actual layout of the lands that you walk around in. So he streams here some Wednesdays. Little Redhead has heard him talk about the engine stuff, so that's a good question to toss to him to see if he knows more details. Okay, neat question, thank you. That being said, all plugins for LOTRO are Lua, which is a scripting engine that is used by many games for their plugins, their add-ins, their modules, whatever they happen to call them. Okay, so that was a brief look at what was happening in the deed info page here. Oh, did we actually finish? I'm not sure. So the Valor 140, that seems to come with a number of skirmish unlock deeds, and so we're making sure those are included. That being said, a cave in the hills, I believe, should have been moved. Oh, no, that is it. So we have the category heading, and then that is a Lone Lands. For Another Forsaken, that's Dunland for a Cave in the Hills. Perfect. Okay. We have the Forester competition. There are a number of deeds for getting titles as well as for doing the Forester quest. Hoping that's already in the game. Stu asks, since LOTRO is so big, do you think a lot of it? Do you think it's a lot of spaghetti code? Seems intimidating, and if it is spaghetti code, how could a plugin work with it? So first of all, plugins don't interact directly with LOTRO. LOTRO exposes what's called an API, an application programming interface. And you can see it represented here in this handy-dandy documentation. So that it provides classes that you can make that are that allow you to draw windows and such on the screen. So for instance, if you want a button that looks like an in-game button, one of these blue buttons here, you can go to turbine.ui.lotro button and you can make a button. And it works much like any other modern windowing system. You say, it's a button, I want it to be at this position, I want this to be its parent, I want this to be the text, I want to call this function when you click the button. And so LOTRO provides ways for you to make user interface things within these namespaces: turbine.ui, turbine.ui.lotro. Turbine was the name of the company that started Lord of the Rings Online. The naming just persists in the API. But you also can do things. You can ask the game to do things for you. You can say, get me information about this backpack, or tell me what time it is. So basically, a plugin can do anything that is a basic Lua functionality that hasn't been stripped out. So basic math things, basic function calls. You can interact with Lord of the Rings Online using these functionalities. So we can use the local player get instance method to get information about the local player. If the thing returned by this, if the local player returned by this doesn't have a function to do what you want to do, you can't do it. And so if you want information on the name of the player, good news, you can do that. If you want to know all of the historical names this player has ever been through a series of renames, you can't do that because there's no function to do that. Or at least you can't do that by asking LOTRO for the information. So LOTRO exposes an interface, and plugins can use that interface to do things, to ask LOTRO to do things, or LOTRO to do things, or to ask LOTRO for information. So LOTRO has a very specific list of things that you can ask it to do. So for instance, a challenge for the deed tracker plugin is that there's no way to ask LOTRO, what was that deed that just finished? Tell me more about it. What's the description? What's the minimum level? These are things you cannot do within the API. And so just like with translations, in order to have that information, those get baked into the plugin in these massive data files. So for deed 18790486666, this is its location in the hierarchical tree. This is information about it. Here's its name in English, Lore of the Blade. Here's the lore, the information about it, if you were to hover over it. And here's a quick little summary of what you need to do in order to complete the deed. Right? This is all in a data file because we can't ask LOTRO for that information. When a deed or a quest finishes, we see information in the quest channel, and that's it. We have to manually match that up to try to figure out what just happened. As for the spaghetti code, the people who write the code for Lord of the Rings Online are professionals in the gaming industry. So I would hope that they would avoid the tendency to write code that could be called spaghetti code. That being said, if you're writing in the gaming industry, you're probably on a time crunch. There's a tendency in the gaming industry for an aggressive development schedule. I don't know if this applies to Lord of the Rings Online, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did at any point during the 16-year history. There's lots of market forces that want a game company to release on certain schedules or for certain real-world calendar dates. If you want to have a December release of a game in order to sell it to people who are buying things for Christmas, which is a big holiday in the United States, then if you can't get certain milestones done throughout the year, then you can't ship. And if you're making physical boxes like they were once upon a time, you don't have time to print up those boxes and package them and ship them out to stores unless you are ready with that, say, in October, which means QA has to have all of your stuff back in March. So, time moves on. And if you miss that, suddenly you're not releasing in 2007, you're releasing in 2008 or something. And a year is a long time to wait. So there's all sorts of things outside of the purview of someone coding that can affect a desired schedule. And what tends to happen for people who do this as a living is the more of a time crunch you are in, the more likely you are to give up best practices in favor of making it work now. Because now is when you need it to work. And if it's going to take you 2 weeks to do it the right way, and if it's going to take you, a few hours to do it the wrong way, and you'll hopefully clean it up later, there can be a lot of incentive to do that. And so, being an outsider, I couldn't tell you how much of the LOTRO code is like that, but given that they are able to continually push out updates both to gameplay, but also changing core mechanics, adding new classes, adding new races, changing existing classes. They're able to do this, and they're able to do this on what seems like an aggressive schedule for a team that is as small as they are. So at this point, 16 years in, I would hope that the code base is in a pretty good state. There's chances along the way to pay down your technical debt, to pay your technical taxes, as it were, to come back and fix these things. And if they ever needed to fix them, I hope they've had a chance to do that. However, just because code isn't spaghetti doesn't mean you can't back yourself into a corner. For instance, something a lot of players would love to have is the ability to have more than one standard house. And regardless of whether SSG wants to do that or not, from a marketing perspective, from a non-programming perspective, I would bet money, not a lot of money, but I would bet a small amount of money that when standard houses were introduced, there was the concept of a player has either 0 or 1 standard houses baked in such a way that makes it really a problem to go back in and say, no, wait, it can be more than 1. Like, it feels like there's a field in a player record somewhere that is either null or the ID of the house that they own. And that there's enough code that references that makes it non-trivial to go back in and say, okay, now instead of an ID, we're going to allow an arbitrary list of max 5 homes. And we're going to change a bunch of different places in code that have this assumption that you have 0 or 1 homes. So you can have non-spaghetti code that still locks you into things that are painful to move away from. Again, I don't know if that's exactly what happened. I would just guess that when they have said in the past that having more than 1 standard house is hard to do, that's where my mind goes, is, it's probably coded in, hard-coded, you have 0 or 1, and boy, is that going to take a lot of digging to find every single place and change them all at the same time, because it's an all or nothing thing. If you miss anything, worst case, you get crashes on people's computers when they have weird configurations, like, oh, you've got 7 premium houses but no standard house? Great, you crashed a desktop, right? Like these weird edge cases that are just really hard to test for. So they've got to be very careful to change everything when they do a change like that. Again, this feels like a same thing when they talk about all the work they have to go through to change vocations, to break apart vocations so that you can choose the professions you want, which is a thing they say that they are coming out, I think in Update 38 is their target. But again, I would bet money that when this thing was first being programmed 16 years ago, your character has 0 or 1 vocations, and everything that deals with crafting just looks at that field and knows you only have 0 or 1 vocation, and if you have a vocation, these are what you have. And so there's a lot of working parts that you need to go in and update for that. Hey, little one. You want to come be on camera? Hi. Did you just come in from outside? Yes. You're very cold. Okay. Well, no, I don't have any firm answers on what goes on behind closed doors at SSG, but I hope that gives you some insight into some of the things that pop into my head when I hear, of the effort that is being put in to allow people to pick and choose their own professions, or maybe possibly add a 4th profession, because dollars to donuts, there's some hard coding in there that assumes that you have 0 or 3 professions, because all vocations come with 3 professions. So even simple things like the layout of your crafting window. Where are you going to put that 4th button? Now, this is probably an easier problem to solve in the grand scheme of things, because there are skins out there that do it. I prefer the skins that just have 3 buttons in a horizontal row instead of this little triangular system. But it just, it's yet another thing that you have to change. Now you need room for a 4th button. Now are you going to do 2 up, 2 down? Are you going to just switch the UI entirely? So many questions. Drew asks, when you mention hard code, is there a way to change it, or does it require to go back and change every little thing and rewrite? And does it take a long time? When I say hard code, I mean the thing that we're talking about is baked into the code in such a way that changing it, you can't just go and change one thing one place. You have to change every place that thinks about it. And so, let's use the concept of professions as a thing. The crafting window. if the crafting window assumes that you have one vocation which has 3 professions, and your character screen or your character skills assumes that you have one vocation with 3 professions or 0, and if there's other places in the code, and they all have this concept of you have 0 or 1 vocation, and if you have a vocation, you have 3 professions. That's an idea that can be hard-coded in, that your character could very well, very simplified, but define char equals, and then we have name, class, race, vocation, right? So name equals Affodil, class equals minstrel, race equals hobbit, vocation equals nil, or vocation equals tinkerer, right? And you keep on going, right? You keep on having these little fields attached to your class. Well, the concept of your class has a vocation, or does not have a vocation, is kind of hard coded into the concept of what is a character. So if you need to go from vocation to profession, you could do this a couple ways, but the 1-to-1 would be profession 1 equals cooking, profession 2 equals jeweler, profession 3 equals, what even they do, cooking, jeweler, and something. Miner? Sure, miner. Right, so you could break apart and say, oh, okay, now we don't have a vocation, but look what we've done. We've hard-coded the concept of how many professions you can have. So everywhere that was dealing with vocations and is now dealing with profession 1, profession 2, profession 3, what if we suddenly are like, but what if profession 4? We say, oops, we should have thought of that when we were doing this, and instead made it profession equals a list, right, of however many. So it might be none, nil, or it could be cooking, jeweler, miner. But if we bake into the idea of, okay, now your profession can be 0 to more, and we have maybe an arbitrary cap somewhere in the code that says, okay, you can't get more than 4. But this list doesn't care about this. This list just says, okay, you've got some number of professions. Here they are. And so this is less hard-coded. This is much more flexible. This is a system that allows you to come in and say, hey, there is no cap on the number of professions you can have because we want to sell profession slots for, 10,000 LOTRO points. 10,000 LOTRO points, your character can have a 5th profession slot. I don't think they have any plans of doing this, but you can imagine other systems where they're like, oh, okay, we want to enable multiple things. Once upon a time, class traits. Maybe there's just your class trait, and they were like, but what if there was 2 class traits or more class traits? And suddenly you open up the idea of, oh, okay, for basic players they get 1, for subscribers they get 2, and people can always pay a whopping 100 Mithro coins for a 3rd one. I don't think I've ever done that, but I do know people who have. And so that idea of a singleton of, oh, you're only ever going to have 0 or 1 of these things prevents you from doing things like, well, what if you want more than 1? And so that's what I'm talking about when your code is going to be more rigid or more flexible, and there's benefits to doing both. But a more flexible code means that the cost, the developer time cost of saying, oh, you know what, instead of 3 professions being the max, it's going to be 4. In a system like this, that could be a one-line change. It really depends how everything else is built. But if there's just a variable somewhere that everyone looks at and says, what's the maximum number of professions, then you just increment that and you're done. Now, that in itself is a bit of a hard-coded system because it suggests that the number is the same for everyone. Maybe you really want that number to be stored on a per-character basis. What's the maximum number of professions for this character? And so changing that is, again, you have to sort of say, okay, we're not using one number for everyone, but we are using one number per login session. This character always has the same number of professions. And that's a smaller change if you already have a system that accounts for variable numbers of professions. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about hard coding is an idea of how the game works can be expressed more rigidly or more flexibly in your code. And the more rigidly it's done in your code, the more hard-coded it is. Norman says hello in chat. Hello. Okay, so enough of this pseudocode, as we would call it. It's not real code. It's just meant to represent an idea. But that's sort of an idea of what I am saying. I don't know how much things are hard coded, but based on how hard they seem to be to do, I have guesses that things like the number of standard houses, your professions, these are things that were baked more rigidly into the code at the beginning, which makes it harder to kind of pick it apart and to make sure that you don't make any mistakes. The redhead said, I recall storage had also a problem of having to load a lot of information, so more storage equals more stuff to load equals longer loading times. That could be. So we've definitely seen in our own personal interaction with the game that the more a character has done, the more quests they've completed, the more deeds they've completed, possibly the more storage they have, the more wardrobe they have. It adds a little bit of extra time, it feels like, when you're logging into the game. Because suddenly, yeah, the game has to account for the fact that you can log in at multiple locations. And it's, an optimization that says, we know this character hasn't logged anywhere since except this machine since the last time he logged in. All the information he had is valid. That's an optimization that can be done, but it doesn't write itself. Someone has to sit down and think through all the implications, make sure that you can't play with a character that's out of sync with the server through some weird circumstances. And every feature has inherent costs to it. The chance to introduce bugs, the delay of other features that might be more important. And so if that were an optimization, and if it's not already in there, there are reasons, possible reasons why it's not in there. Okay. Neat. Thanks for getting me on tangents. Where were we? Okay, so yes, there's the force competition. There's a bunch of new deeds associated with that. That makes me curious. Did I do a thing? Perfect. Yes, I did. Okay. Okay. So Valar, delvings. We have a new category of delving deeds. So all the old ones I shoved into a heading called 1 to 2 person delvings. And it looks like 1/2, so I'm not entirely happy with that. And then there's also 3/6, which does simplify down to 1/2. So again, I'm not entirely happy with that. I might change it to 1 or 2 person delvings, 3 or 6. We'll see how I'm feeling about that. And then we have the actual new 3 to 6 person deeds. And Explorer of Dark Places is a wrapper deed that has these other deeds underneath of it. So 3 3s, 3 6s, and a wrapper. Okay, cool. Deed info is good. Let's go ahead and save that off. All right, deed data. This is the data file that stores all the information about these deeds. And similarly, the location in the UI is going to be bumped anytime you insert something in the middle of a list. And we can see that here. The only thing that I'm seeing different is this location in the list. Cool. Same thing here, here. Now it is possible when you're using a file comparison utility like this to make a rule, a temporary rule in this case, that says I don't care about that. So if we said k, and let's go ahead and do that, equals some number that. Okay, and this is a regular expression. I don't care about that. Cool. So, only show me things I care about. And we can see that we have a lot fewer differences being shown to us now. Okay, looks like that is a summary change. This is a new deed. Awesome. Path of Restoring Rune. That's a Runekeeper deed that someone's like, hey, I completed this. It's not on the game. Sure enough, oversight. Or it's not in Deed Tracker. All right. Horror with Many Legs. Looks like there's a spelling change, and they added a period. Fantastic. Hooray for data files. Okay, minimum level changed to the 8 of Rohan, which is great. Waiting until level 74 for that auto-bestowed probably was leading some people to go get the war mount and then not be able to turn that quest in because the destination of that quest is covered with spoilers. Okay. Level 40. Change the spelling of it to be without a U. That is a horrible facet of English. Changing the tiers of these. Yep, that would do it. All right. More tier changes. Yep. Fantastic. And new deeds for the Valar. Awesome. Yep. And finally, the woodcutters competition and the racial deeds and the delving deeds. Awesome. So all of that looks really plausible. So we're going to go ahead and cross our fingers and hope that it is. Deed categories, we have, these are for localization of those category headers. So when you're looking at Deed Tracker, in order for each of these category headings to be localizable, they're called out in their own, where are we? Class area separate, there we go. Let's go ahead and expand, or change our settings a little bit. Cool, okay. What's going on with race and social, though? 0 out of 17, why aren't you showing me all 17? Oh, hey, yes, I'm getting error messages. Fantastic. Let's go take a look at that. Okay, so what we can see, it's in main win. And this was 974. So what we're seeing is attempt to index local current deed a nil value. Okay, fair enough. So what we want is if current deed equals nil, then we want information. So we want to go ahead and do a turbine.shell.writeLine, and we're going to go ahead and say nil deed when looking up, and we're going to go ahead ijk of self.selected tab I and j. All right. So we can go ahead and reload Deed Tracker now and hopefully get a little bit more information about what is going on here. Okay, we're looking up 5263. Fantastic. What does that mean? Well, when we're looking this up, we can go into our deed info, and this is the structure. And so what we're really looking at is that we have skirmish instances. We can come up here. Skirmish, instances, hobbies, the war, class, race, epic. Okay. Class, race, epic is 5. Then we have race and social, which is 2. And then we have 63. Okay. So. Race and social. Let's take a look. What is 63? Ah, fantastic. We are missing a category identifier for the emotes section, which is just not going to work. What we really need is a category ID here. Now, I have intermediate that generates these things. Probably not the best solution, but it is a solution. And I try not to let perfect be the enemy of good. So we're going to come on in here to class race epic and take a look at race and social. So, emote. Okay, so we are missing a category here, and that's going to be a problem. In fact, what we're seeing here might be worth doing a broader check for. So let's go ahead and find this everywhere, but just in the data files. Hang on a sec. What I really just want is, just stuff in deed tracker. Okay, deed info, just this. Cool. Well, that's good. Okay, so not sure how that crept in. I could have accidentally deleted something, but we do have a lookup table for those that we can just go into. So that's deed categories and emote. Emotes. That should be number 128. Fantastic. How much space on the hard drive is LOTRO using, asks Burke. You know what? I can get that for you in a second on my machine, of course. Okay. So we're going to come on in here. We're going to fix this to actually have its lookup table. Not sure how that got deleted, but probably a mistake on my part. Fantastic. Okay. How much space on the hard drive is LOTRO using? Well, LOTRO exists in two different places. It exists in your program files, or wherever you install the program stuff itself. And it also exists in your data files, your plugin information and screenshots and other things. So usually a lot smaller. Okay, program files, Standing Stone Games. All right, so Lord of the Rings Online, that program files directory has 43.7 gigabytes. Bull Roar itself hasn't been updated in a few weeks, but 36.5. So that's a basic answer for you. And then in your, by default, documents, Lord of the Rings Online directory, things can accumulate. So for instance, I have a bunch of screenshots. I have 30 megs of screenshots accumulated there, and then another 300 megs in other places. Any plugins you install, any plugin data, any UI skins, those all take up space here. However, they take up usually fractions of a % of what the actual data files take up. Now, one thing to note is that when you first install Lord of the Rings Online, it will ask you, do you want to install all the highest quality graphics? It will take so much extra space on your disk. So if you have low disk space, as it looks like you might have, you will go ahead and take that into account when you say yes or no for that. You say, I have no space on my laptop. Is there any way to install directly on the external hard drive? Absolutely. When Lord of the Rings Online uses a standard installer, and I believe one of the things you get to choose is where it gets installed. Bear in mind there are performance implications to having your executable and data files, your program files information on an external drive. You're going to be limited both by the speed of that drive and the speed of the connector, and usually, though not always, the speed of getting things off of an external drive to where it needs to go in memory can be slower than an integrated drive. Your mileage may vary, and if you have better information on that, by all means, take that. But that's sort of my default mental model, is an external drive. You may find yourself having longer game load times than someone who has an equivalent hard drive that's got a more direct connection to the motherboard. Do asked, how do we make a coding engine for a game like LOTRO? Don't you need an engine of an engine? How could a person even make one before a coding language was made? So, good news, coding languages have been around for a long time. The C programming language was first spec'd out in, I want to say the 70s, but you know what? I don't even have to guess. Ian Wiki C programming language. Great. Thank you, Dennis Ritchie. So we can see it first appeared in 1972 and has been used and systematized and structured ever since. So you could do a game like this in C without anything more modern like C++ or C# or anything that's been introduced since 1972. Just be aware the C programming language in itself has been around for over 50 years. So you are absolutely correct, though, in principle, writing programming languages without a programming language is a frustrating experience. Before C, before higher level programming languages, you had assembler. And assembler is much harder to work in and accomplish the same tasks in the same amount of time. So there's a lot of I guess you would call it bootstrapping, where you get a programming language, and using that helps you make another more complicated programming language. Using those helps you make tools. Having those tools helps you get to the next level of tools. And so you have this leapfrogging effect where each new generation of tools and systems and engines helps you with the next one. If all of that were wiped away and you had to start all over with assembler, you would not be writing Lord of the Rings Online with assembler in any reasonable amount of time. So short answer, yes. Programming languages have existed for a long time, and we use those to make engines, and there are incremental improvements over time. So, the first game engines did not produce results that look like Lord of the Rings Online. Usually, though not always, the first iterations of things are much more bespoke. They're made for a specific purpose. So you might have a game engine for Quake or Doom, but not a general purpose game engine. Nowadays you have platforms like Unity, which are not just made for a single commercial project and that's it. You can reuse those for multiple projects, and many people can use them and accomplish some very good effects. So, not sure if that answers the question, but those are thoughts in my head when you ask it. Okay, cool. So, fix a bug. Gotta make sure we don't introduce too many of those. And we're just going to close that. Okay, so we have this, and now my ClassRace Epic UI is properly showing up. Fantastic. Okay, so these categories are super useful. And under Aerodor, Swampfleet, and Cardelon, we have now the delvings, 1 to 2 person delvings, and also 3 to 6 person delvings. Perfect. D says, well, thanks. I'm a noob to all this, but you should work for SSG. You really know your stuff. Well, thank you. I live in the Netherlands, and SSG is based in the northeast of the United States, and they prefer their employees to be local. So we have some issues should I ever wish to pursue such a goal. No, I really enjoy building on top of what's already here. So I really enjoy that Lord of the Rings is here, and I can build plugins that work on top of it and maybe help people out in their gameplay. I don't know that I would enjoy the process of making the game as much as I do the process of changing the game. Hard to tell until you try it, of course. But we each of us excel at different things, and I currently really enjoy the plugin development aspect of it. Okay. Okay, so new categories for Valar, Forester, 1 to 2 person delving, 3 to 6 person. Fantastic. One of these days I'll probably make a better way of doing categories, but for now, that's what it is. Various changes to support U37. I'll come back to that one. River Hobbit. Stage. Monster Play. Gonna come back to. Stage that. River Hobbit. And that. River Hobbit. Oh, that reminds me. I don't have a good answer for this. I don't have a River Hobbit yet, but having one would allow me to have a plugin that says, what on earth is the number for River Hobbits? The internal number for River Hobbits. I've right now just said 999, but that's not going to work. So I need to remind myself. Need the Lua number for River Hobbits. That being said, well, I need it for the Mariner also. I feel like someone over on the plugin Discord server mentioned what it was, but I'm not going to bother loading it up right now. So I'm making a note to myself to make sure I remember to do it before I ship this out the door. But for now, it's fine. Okay, that's a bug fix. Those are future development. We have Eastern Kings Counter Western. That's fine. The Western is actually a little preemptive, and I think I'd be fine just saying no. We'll keep that out for right now. We'll at least do it as a different commit. For one thing, they might still change their mind on what that's called. Okay. Why are you too large to display? That fills me with dread, especially because the English one isn't. Oh. Right, because I wasn't careful about something. So I use a preprocessor, and that preprocessor is looking at the wrong thing. I wonder if I can fix that really fast. That's gonna take longer than I want to get distracted for. So what we can just say is, hey, make a note to a future self. That's a future me problem. Future cube, fix that. And what we can say is, okay, what was that? Deed data. All right, so deed data, d.lua, and deed data fr.lua are still are getting generated with English names. Oh, I think there's a faster way to do that. Update labels. Hey, update labels. If that, then d.name equals. Let's see if that's a really fast fix for a complicated problem. A couple more things came into chat. Let's take a look at those. But first, excellent. Okay, so fixed that problem. And now we're just seeing the changes in here that we were expecting. Okay. And the French one as well, it looks like. Okay, that's what we wanted to see. All right, never mind. Okay, D says, how long do you think it will take you to do all the deeds for all the new lands? And Chandler said 350 quests. I'm guessing maybe more. Well, one of the things is while internally quests and deeds are kind of two sides of the same coin, the deed tracker plugin is just concerned with the things that appear in the deed log, not the quest log. So if they say 350 quests, if they're assuming deeds and quests are both in there, and they might be, only some of those are going to be within the deed log. And so usually it's less effort than that. The big thing is going through and figuring out a hierarchy for them, because I love being able to present the deeds with a sense of hierarchy. In order to do Deeds of the Misty Mountain, you have to do Explorer of the Misty Mountain and Perils of the Mountain Final and Slayer of the Misty Mountain, but not Giant Slayer Advanced or Troll Slayer Advanced. And so presenting them in a visual hierarchy is one of the big features of the deed tracker for me, and so have to make sure I sort that out before releasing it. So how long does it take to do an expansion? It does depend. Like if it's a full new area, that can take numerous hours to kind of go through the information and to sort out how to present it and then get it into the data files. Nordman says, aren't these internal numbers in the documentation? Never checked it, but I feel like something like that should be there. Absolutely, but River Hobbit's post date the version of my documentation. So if I go to race here, one thing is there's kind of two parallel versions of the oh, that's update 25. It's a little bit older, but of the API reference. And so the one over at LOTRO interface /wiki /LOTRO_APIs_reference, I find very handy because it tends to, let's see, is that gameplay? Yeah. It tends to include the numerical values for these things. So if I come in here to race, under enumerations, we get all the same enumerated values as in this version of documentation, but also those internal values. Now you can just write a plugin that says get race and log into a character of that race, and you're fine. That'll get it to you. But oftentimes the documentation will lag behind an update, like adding River Hobbits or the upcoming Mariners. Sorry, the released Mariners. And so there are numbers internally for these. If you say what's my race or what's my class, that will get returned. But I'm not logged into such a character, so I can't get immediate access to those numbers. But I will do that before I release this, so I can bake those new numbers in. So even if they're not in the documentation, I'll know what those numbers are for River Hobbit and for Mariner. So yes, documentation does have most of the numbers, but as new things get released, documentation can lag behind. Burkay says, is there any way to play LOTRO on Mac? So there's not a LOTRO client for the Mac OS, but if you're using some sort of VM, like possibly like a Parallels, I think there are guides for this over on the forums, but if you're using a VM where you have a Windows environment, I believe you can play it within there. But I don't think there's any way anymore to play LOTRO natively on a Mac OS. That being said, there's lots of people who have the same question and have answered it over on the LOTRO forums, so I would check there before anywhere else. He says, I remember back in 2010 and 2015 there was Mac support, but I think they got rid of it. Yeah, it was in the last maybe 2 years or so that I think they decided to do that. And my guess is they looked at their metrics for how many players in the player base were playing on a native Mac client versus a Windows client on a Mac, on a VM on a Mac, or just on a Windows machine. They probably looked at those numbers, looked at how much developer time it was taking to keep up to date with. Every time there's a new major Mac release, it feels like it breaks your installers or it breaks something. There's some recent changes to Sonoma that will definitely catch you out if you had your installers or app bundle built in a certain way. It just won't work on Sonoma anymore. I hope you had developer hours to spend updating it. I I think they probably looked at the two of them, how many people are actually using this and how much developer time it was taking, and came to the conclusion that for those people who still want to play on a Mac, there are solutions like using VMs. Leah in chat there has said, check the forums and check out Crossover. Awesome, thanks for throwing that in. So since there are solutions for Mac players, I think they decided to stop playing chase the issues with the Mac installer. Okay, says, my problem is I can't do boot camp, not enough space. Leah says, I play on an M1 Mac, nice, and there's a few minor issues, but you can definitely make it work. Yeah, one thing I would say is, depends on your situation, but extra storage doesn't have to be expensive, right? Like an external hard drive with a terabyte of space, depending on where you are and what your situation is, might not set you back by much. Though now that I say that, I am curious. I'm going to do a quick little search. 1 TB external SSD hard drive. Sate my curiosity. Okay, so you may or may not be in a position where $79 for an external hard drive is a reasonable investment, but space is something that can be solved, right? Even if you can't change your internal integrated hard drive easily, just getting an external one and running on USB-C, USB 3, that's an option. And it will definitely, there's problems I used to have in life that were related to, I don't have space for all my digital assets. And relieving that definitely brought my low-grade stress levels about my electronic environment down. Now, maybe that gets supplanted with low-grade stress about not having an adequate backup solution, but you're kicking that stress football down the road. Okay, says, okay, you have an external HDD, not an SSD. There's definite benefits to both. You can get a lot more space for a spinning drive. I have I think a 2 terabyte spinning drive just that I can throw stuff on, and that keeps my SSD from getting too cluttered. So that's the thing you can do. One tool that I recommend for anyone who has lots of stuff and they don't know what, hang on a sec. Let me set this up on a, yeah, that'll work. Okay. Okay, so WinDirStat gives you a nice visual representation of a space, and, is pretty snappy on the resize. Leah says, B4, is that your name? Is that also a Star Trek reference? That is definitely one of my online monikers. It is not a Star Trek reference. Do you also stream your plugin making elsewhere? I will stream on my personal channel occasionally, especially when I forget to switch to which channel I'm streaming to, as I did today. Ultimately, I have so little spare time in my day-to-day life right now that I end up, if I'm going to stream, I stream here on the official LOTRO stream channel. But feel free to follow me on Twitch. I will occasionally do stuff on my personal channel as well, and I think that'll help you get notifications about it. But I also try to put something out on the Light Beyond the Shire Twitter, Little Redhead's Twitter. She's kind enough to post things when I'm going to go live on the official channel here. But Tuesdays at whatever time it is, like 1 p.m. Eastern time. You haven't been chatting much. You're driving. Good. Stop. Don't chat while you're driving. But you're very much enjoying the Super Austin chatting. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. Pay attention to the road. B4, just in case you're curious, my username B414213562 is simply the decimal digits of the square root of 2 up to a certain point. Plus B for my name. But I also go by the moniker Cube. That's what I publish these plugins under, and I have numerous offline names as well. So WinDirStat is an incredibly useful tool for visually finding where are things kind of clogging up my disk space. For instance, I just did this against the Lord of the Rings Online folder on my computer, and we can see whatever this is, it's taken a lot. That's because I have some GitHub repositories co-located within my plugins directory, so that's not fair. But yeah, there's a 73 meg file here that Git is making use of, so that's not fair. Okay, what's up here? Okay, cache data. This CEF folder, whatever is going on here, there's 277 megs going on. Cool. So I would use this normally against my whole hard drive, or maybe my documents folder, my desktop, wherever I think things are going astray, but usually against my whole hard drive, though that takes a little bit longer to do. No worries, you're off-road now. Excellent. I hope it was an intentional off-roading experience. And I'll use this, I'll target my whole hard drive, my whole external hard drive, whatever I'm trying to do to get a sense of where is the space going. So first of all, it sorts all the folders by how much space there is recursively within that folder with the highest user at the top. So we can see this caching is pretty big. The plugins after that, I am using 275 megs for all my plugins. Screenshots, 228 megs, and so on. It just gets lower down. And one of the reasons I really like this is you really want to spend time getting the most bang for your buck. If you are clearing up a hard drive, if you're trying to free up space, I could free up more space by simply deleting whatever this file is than spending an hour in this folder. Like, oh, do I need this? Do I need that? Do I need this? Do I need that? It doesn't matter. The whole folder is 10 megs. I can clean up 7 times that just by figuring out if I can delete this file and then deleting this file. So you want the most bang for your buck. If you can delete one file or spend a whole weekend looking through 1,000 files for not even 1% of the result, you know, pick your battles. And so maybe there's a reason to go through all these screenshots looking for, oh, do I need these? Should I move these off? Should I keep them here or not? But generally, if it's a screenshot, get it off onto that slow external hard drive. You don't need it on your good drive. So once you've taken the screenshots, get them out of here. LOTRO doesn't care. LOTRO is currently using a date-time format for the file name, which was a welcome change from when they were just doing an indexing thing and they had to figure out what's the next number to use. So they're just, LOTRO doesn't care if you move those screenshots out of there. Get something on your external drive, put it there, right? Like, I have some PNGs instead of JPEGs, so they're just taking way too much space as it is. But just for some layouts, right? Like, where are my skills on this character? Cool. Those don't need to be here. Those can be in some parallel folder on a slower drive with more capacity. So give some thought to how you attack your hard drive space. Like if you don't have the luxury of just buying a bigger hard drive, you can spend some time cleaning up and just do it a lot more efficiently. That's all I want to say. I don't know what that is. Huh. All right, well, that's a question for later. So that's WinDirStat. If you're looking for it, you can go to apparently windirstat.sourceforge.net. I'll just paste that into chat here. Cool. It obviously based off of a Linux solution, but this is the Windows version of it. It's worked fantastically. And I'm going to close it because I could spend too much time on that. Okay. Neat. So, we have a couple of things we're not committing yet. All right. Deed names to IDs. We want to just double check. Everything looks good here. We can see some... oh, fantastic. Wolf Slayer. We now have a conflicting one because Hobbits and River Hobbits do it. Fantastic. All that looks like it's in order. We have changes and we have new ones. Awesome. French looks the same. And we can see the specific changes in the English version. So we see some new deeds coming in, a cave in the hills, Assault and Duguldur, and so on. The new delvings are in there. Enmity of the Orcs and Goblins. It's a nice new name that doesn't conflict. Enmity of the Wolves does conflict. And we have Wood Trolls as well. Fantastic. I got a definite Monty Python Lumberjack vibe from some of the new deed names. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at those. Let's see, where were they? All right, Forester competition. is a lumberjack, sleeps at night, hacks all day, cuts down trees, feels strong. I don't know. I mean, there's definitely some things like, hangs in taverns. That feels like a reference. Eats their bread. I don't remember that being a direct reference, but like, I feel like there was some inspiration there. That's all. That's all. Good times. Good fun. So if you'd like your outside of Middle Earth references, I feel like you could read into that. All right. Deed objectives. These are automatically generated, and I've been trying to improve them as time goes on. So some of them are a mixed bag, like this defeat boars in Eriador used to be Shire, Berland, Erdlun, Angmar, Lowlands, Northlands, and Trollshalls, which is a nice exhaustive list of where you get the boars. But thanks to some of the stuff I did in other locations, now it's just defeat boars in Eriador, which I'm not sure is an improvement, but that's okay. Okay, well, it's a new objective for new things. Good. Okay, this looks the same, but in German. This looks the same, but in French. Good. All right, these were spreadsheet changes. I'm going to go ahead and commit my to-do file changes here. And that was a debugging change. Awesome. Cool, so that was all the changes that bring us up to date to update 37, except for Mariner class stuff. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and fix this bug. Fixed missing emotes category reference. And I'm curious where that came in. Do says, if I download your deed tracker, will it show the deeds I already have completed? And if not, do I have to start over my character to get it working? And how would it work for the new expansion? Great questions. So first of all, like we were saying before, there is no way for a plugin to ask the game, hey, what deeds has this character completed? Unlike other things, like there is a way for plugins to say, hey, what recipes does this character know for crafting? That you can do. But what quests or deeds has this character completed? That's not available within the game. However, we can fake it with an external tool. So right now, my deed tracker thinks I've completed nothing. However, there's a tool called LOTRO Companion that I'm going to go ahead and load up right now. It may actually not work because we just had an update today. But if it does work, because it was a pretty big update. Let's see. All right, it seems to have worked. So that's a way for it to go and take a peek under the covers to see what's the current status of your character. If you do that, then you can also follow these steps at well, I've got to remember where this is. Let's see. For an overview of the plugin, see dtracker.lifebeyondtheshire.com. Oh, I said LOTRO dtracker. That's not going to get me to the right place. Now, did I spell Life Beyond the Shire correctly? Yes, I did. Okay, so documentation. So if you go to dtracker.lifebeyondtheshire.com, there is an import deed completion from LOTRO Companion page. So you can walk through the steps here. Download the companion. Well, I did that. Import the character. Cool. Done. Old screenshots, but that's okay. Just bear in mind that if your game escalates, either it says, oh, do you want to run this as administrator? Then you need to do the same for LOTRO Companion. Otherwise, LOTRO Companion won't be able to peek at what's going on with LOTRO. Once you've done that, you want to use the tool that is in, let's see, where is it? Oh yeah, there it is. So in Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, Plugins, assuming that's where you have your folder. In Cube Plugins, in Deed Tracker, there's a thing called Import Deed Completion from LOTRO Companion.hda. If you run that, it'll go ahead and give you the option to do some imports. I'm going to go ahead and unload my Deed Tracker, and I will import Treebeard Affodil. Bam! That's all it takes. Now the next time you load your plugin, it's going to go ahead and say, hey, there's 1,447 completed deeds that LOTRO Companion knows about that we don't have imported here. Would you like to import them? Of course I would. Import. Done. That's all it takes. All 1,447 of those deeds are now checked off in Deed Tracker. So that's a handy tool to know about. And we can come back in and we can say, oh, okay, I've actually completed 92% of Eriador. Awesome. Swanfoot and Carlon, the delvings being in there is going to kill my percentage for quite a while. And I think everything else is roving threats or hidden treasure. Yeah. Fantastic. Those are coming soon. So, I hope that answered your question. It does not show you deeds that you've already completed. You don't have to start a character over, although Deed Tracker will pay attention to any deeds that you complete after you load up the plugin. You need Deed Companion and Deed Tracker. Is a video I can watch that you can watch that I just made? Well, you can always come back and watch this part of this video. We're about an hour and 30 minutes into the stream. And so you can watch this video on demand here on the LOTRO Twitch channel and also over on YouTube after I get it uploaded. And just replay that and let me know if it doesn't work. You can always shoot a message over to, do I have it in here? Yes, LOTRODtracker@gmail.com. Feel free to shoot an email saying I'm having trouble, but try following along at home. That's going to be... and try following along with this documentation. So you're going to if you want to go this route, you download LOTRO Companion. The screenshots will be a little bit different. He's constantly making changes. You'll import a character from LOTRO to LOTRO Companion. And then you'll use this import deed completion.hta hypertext application to bridge the gap between the two. After that, you'll load up the plugin in the game, and away you go. Oh, hey. Little Redhead has asked Moobot for information about Umbar. Corsairs of Umbar is now available to pre-purchase. Learn more at LOTRO.com. Thanks. Good information. Thanks to Elda, indeed. Okay, so you don't have to start your character over. You also don't have to do this import right away. Well, Deed Tracker is loaded, and you'll want to make sure you click automatically load for whoever, perhaps one character, perhaps all of them. But while it's loaded, any deeds that you complete, it will go ahead and track. And that can be very useful. For instance, if you complete Explorer of West Gondor, then Deed Tracker knows that you must have already completed Beacons of West Gondor, Camps of the Enemies, Paths of the Dead, Prosperity of West Gondor, Gondorian Treasure Cache. So if you complete Explorer of West Gondor, and we can actually do this as using a debug capability, or manually clicking this box over here. But we'll pretend it just happened. Explorer of West Gondor. So if we see this in the chat window, then Deed Tracker is going to go ahead and mark off all the things that you had to have completed in order to complete Explorer of West Gondor. And it'll show that those are done. Dude says, I just got started getting into deeds. I've been very anti-deed for a long time, but I just want to do them now. I did all of Eriador yesterday and felt pretty proud of yourself. Awesome. So, deeds aren't for everyone, and that's totally fine, but deeds are the biggest source of free in-game currency, LOTRO points, that you can find in-game. And one of the things that... Here, I'm going to go ahead and unselect that. One of the things that the Deed Tracker plugin will tell you is how many LOTRO points can you get from clearing the deeds in a region. So, for instance, I still have 15 LOTRO points in each of North Downs, Misty Mountains, Avondale, Angmar, and Forakel because I haven't done the roving threats or the treasures of Forakel yet. So I can still get another 75 LOTRO points by clearing those out once I hit level 95. Or 100, whatever it is, to unlock those. And we can see in Gondor, there's 120 LOTRO points just for doing all the deeds in Western Gondor. Depending on your playstyle, you may get a lot of these just because you will get almost all of them except the Slayer deeds just by doing all of the quests in a region. you'll knock off the quests of West Gondor, and also usually all of the Explorer ones, unless you missed 1 or 2 objectives, you go back and get those. So right away, just doing all the quests in the region, you're going to get 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Oh, maybe not for the warbands. Okay, 20. Plus, if you do all the explorations, you're going to get another 10, 20, 30. So you can get 50 LOTRO points just by doing the storyline in West Gondor. That's not bad, and it adds up. So there's apparently here. Let me hide the overlevel stuff. Okay, so apparently my character can get another 2,340 LOTRO points just by completing all the deeds that they haven't done yet. Now that's unlikely to happen anytime soon because some of them are very hard to complete, but that just gives you a sense of what's going on. In Ravanian, East and Rohan, which we are still mucking about in, there's another 55 LOTRO points that I can get. Not to mention Virtue Experience. Virtue Experience is great for enhancing your character's abilities, and you can get a lot of them from doing deeds. I can get another 20,000 just finishing off Eastern Rohan. Awesome. So, deeds aren't for everyone, and especially some people just don't bother doing them on alts, but on your main character, you might find it worthwhile to go ahead and do them. So, good luck. I hope Deed Tracker helps you with that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close that, and close this, and get rid of that as well. Nice. Okay, so we had, that Western King's Gondor. I just don't know how much I need it right now. Or the monster play. That's all fine. And we don't need that because we're not crashing anymore. Great. Whew. Okay, so Corsair. Corsair would be useful to do. Did I start streaming earlier than normal? I wonder if I did. I feel like I normally start at 2. Man, I am so out of it. And 2 plus 6 is 8. Cool. So my normal start time was like 40 minutes ago. Fantastic. We'll see how long I go today. May need a break in the middle. Okay, so there's a couple of things here. Dun, dun, dun. What does pre-purchasing get us, anyway? Let's scroll all the way at the bottom. Neat. So, you were asking, for a link to that LOTRO companion. Absolutely. So one of the things you can do is find it in that link that I showed you. Click here to download LOTRO companion. Sweet. I do not accept all of that. So, let's go ahead and LOTRO companion link. No worries. Do not feel bad about that at all. Okay. I was going to look at a thing. Where is it? Just trying to remember what was going on with this thing. Neat. All sorts of stuff. Ooh, he can get ultimate carry-all selection box. Fun. I was just trying to decide if I wanted to unlock the Mariner if possible. Does it happen? Does it unlock if you get this now? Probably not. Did they say what things come where? When? Mariner class. When does the Mariner class happen? Alright, little asterisk. 1 per account, accessible immediately following purchase of Corsairs of Umbar. Neat. Okay. Well, now I'm kind of tempted to do that. Alright. I'm going to turn off my screen here for just a minute. Okay. I turned off my camera. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and let's go make a new character. Who am I to resist the urge? So yeah, in order to have access to both what is a River Hobbit's ID and what is a Corsair's ID, I'm going to go ahead and try to make a River Hobbit Corsair. We'll see if that's even a possible combination. But you know, River Hobbit, Mariner, not Corsair. We were using the placeholder Corsair in private conversations for a while, so I got to break myself of that habit. Oh, good. Little Red-Headed says, here's the wiki on River Hobbit, including naming ideas. River Hobbit names, starting in ancient Celtic and Germanic tongues. I agree, Little Redhead. I do think Dutch is fine. Mariner. Yep. Okay, so we're going to make a new character. We're going to try to make a River Hobbit. And we're going to try to make a Mariner. Yeesh. Alright. Starting tutorial. Shadows of Amar, Before the Shadow, or Skip. You want it to be Zevrau? Let me read Zeman and see if that's already taken. It probably is. Let's see. Great character. Hey. Alright. We have Zeman. I'll leave Zefrau for you. Google says they equate. Okay, so when you first log in to a Mariner, you get some stuff. I'm going to go ahead and close the D-tracker, move the button out of the way. Why are you pointing at that? Okay. UI layout load. Please, thank you. So if you don't have a layout saved, I would highly recommend it. It saves having to redo your layouts on every new character. Okay, so we were actually able to get our plugin loaded. Awesome. So what we want to do is make some changes to the D-Tracker plugin so we can get that class and race details. So, super important question. Where is our local player? Because we're going to have one of those. globals. Awesome. Okay, and so we have my care, which is a shortcut for local player, and we can use that API that we were looking at before. We have local player. We can use that to say get class, get race. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So turbine.shell.writeline. Local player dot get class, and we'll go ahead and do that. Well, in this case, we'll use my car. And it's going to say, hey, you should call that with colon notation, otherwise it won't work. And it's right. And we'll go ahead and get a race as well. And for that, we can go ahead and unload, load, and there we go. Except I didn't create a plugins tab. So I like having a special tab for plugins. In that, I go ahead and add the error, and I add standard. And that'll get me what I need to from plugins. If things are going right, I can output to standard. If things go wrong, I get a message in error. Okay, so we can see get class gives us 216, get race gives us 125. Now, first thing we do is make sure that's not the same as any other values, because if it is, something has gone wrong with our assumptions that this will work. So let's come back in to our data files, and that's a good question. Where would it be? So hi elf. Hi elf. Really? What are these things? Sure. Let's search for 194. Aha! Deed info strings. Great. I kind of regret not having those be keyed by something else, but that's okay. Okay, so what do we have? We have classes. Get class 216. That makes sense. Brawler was 215. Nice to have a little consistency. Mariner. And then I'll just need to fill that in for French and German as well. So that's data info strings. Great. Now, you can log in with various characters to try to get a sense of, log in with different client languages and just use user interfaces like all classes and see what is it called. But if you have access to the data files, we can check there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick little peek. Why don't you know about my XML? There we go. Cool. All right, this is a class quest. Required class Corsair. That's not what I want. When was this? Hang on. I gotta find the right file. Labels. Alright, let's try that instead. Classes, fantastic, and classes. Okay, so This is probably much more reliable, so let's bring that on in. Let's bring that information over. And, all right. Now, just for consistency's sake, Guardians line 6, Vector, great, and Guardian. Cool. Since I'm in here, feels like might as well go ahead and double check the other values as well. So, Captain, this is just way too wide for my purposes. Let's get both of them on the screen at one time. All right, Captain is the second line, great. Hauptmann, yep. Capitan. I guess any of these that look translated is fine. The Brawler is the first one that looks untranslated. All right, so Brawler, second to last after Mariner, good. Schlacher for the German, and Matros, and then French, Bacharur, all right, and Marin. Fantastic. So we've got those localized just the way we want. However, we also have races. Now, River Hobbit, we can see the get race is 125. Does that seem plausible? It does seem plausible. We can see... Oh, that was in these two. So, race is 125. I think I just said? Yep. That seems very plausible. No idea why there's gaps here in the numbers, why they jumped from 120 to 125, but it also doesn't matter. It's an arbitrary value. It could be 7. So what we want to do is make sure that we have those values as well. So let's see if there's a races. There is. Awesome. So races, and French races. Okay, so in here, Bjorn and Dwarfman, River Hobbit has a space and no hyphen. I appreciate that. I appreciate how canonically you might expect it to be River dash lowercase h Hobbit, but I think they are going to avoid a bunch of people misspelling it by having there be a space there, even if the other one was more correct. Not sure if it was. Okay, cool. We have River Hobbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got them all. Great. Okay. Bjorninger. That looks good. Stark Act. Yep. So Fluss Hobbit. With a hyphen and a capital H. Excellent. And Hobbit de Rivières. Excellent. Hang on. Yeah. Okay, those are some long race names for French. Huh.
I'm not seeing that on your screen. There we go.
I just realized. Yes, so the redhead let me know that I had not shared some of these windows. Well, apologies for anyone who was confused. Yes, so we're using these data files and double checking our translations, and these French ones are longer than I would have thought was comfortable, but it probably makes a lot of sense in French. Nin de Hache West, which is Stout Axe. Okay. And Hobbit de Rivières. Okay. That works. Okay, so by logging in, we have we have identified 216 as the class and 125 as the race. We also have some balance for fore and aft thing going on here in the UI, but that actually doesn't matter. Not for our purposes. So if we come in and load the deed tracker, one of the things I'm interested in seeing is, if we go to class race epic race, we should see the River Hobbit deeds. And indeed we do. We have back in there again. Few among the river hobbits have journeyed as far from home as you, but even after all your adventures, there are few things that would bring you more comfort than returning to Misthallow. Very nice. Friend of the Forsaken. All of these are in, and all we need now are the class deeds for the Mariner, which we can circle back around to here. Okay. Oh, I didn't customize my appearance at all. Weird. That's not the Hobbit I normally make. Okay. Neat. So we have tracked down race and class names in English, French, and German for Mariner and River Hobbit. Cool. Let's take a look at what that looks like. First of all, we're going to undo some of these changes. All right. So we have updated Brawler as well while we're at it. River Hobbit, and that was the number as well as the name. Great. Mariner. River Hobbit. Cool. French. Marine. And for Brawler. River Hobbit. Great. And you know what? I should get those into my spreadsheets because I'm going to want those. Okay, so class. We're doing Mariner. And that is 216. And if you like them in hex, my spreadsheet also does hex, apparently. And then we have River Hobbit, which we now know is 125. Fantastic. Okay, we had already looked at race and social. Yeah. Real question. Okay. Neat. Make sure to add to preprocessor. Make sure to add to preprocessor. Cool. At least until I don't need to do that. Okay. Mariner. Let's check on the Mariner. So one of the things I've mentioned before is that there are deeds in the data files that I don't necessarily want to include in my plugin because they're not released yet or for whatever reason. And so let's pull this over. This is my preprocessor. It's not great, but it does the job, and that's the important thing. Okay, Mariner. Okay, Mariner deeds. So one of the things is that these were originally, I think, copied over from Brawler, and so the actual names were not correct, perhaps. But the numbers here, those are what we want. Hey, little one. What's up, cat? So, for instance, that deed number, opening move, well, that's correct. We can see minimum level 30. And so what we can do is we could start importing these into my intermediary source here. Class deeds. Alright, these appear to be pretty alphabetical. Now, this is the sort of the paperwork side of doing a plugin like the deed tracker. It's not the most exciting of things, but it does need to be done in order to, in some way, in order to filter from all deeds in data files to just the ones that seem like they're actually achievable. And then to also sort them hierarchically the way we want to show them. Okay, so what we want to do here is make space, because we're assuming there are Mariner versions of this coming in. Now, what I don't actually know is if that's true, but what we've seen before is that there's some minimum level versions, level 1 minimum versions. So what we want to do is kind of hoist out, if we want to use a Mariner theme, the deeds in question, and we'll take a look. Okay, we have a class deeds tier whatever. That's going to be very important. Okay. Okay, so we can see we need to complete setup strikes, overhand smash, smash through the ranks. Great, let's find those. Okay, set up strikes. That sure looks like this. Man, sometimes I wish I could stream off of like 3 different monitors. That's okay. Overhand smash. Overhand smash. And smash through the ranks. Great. I'm starting to regret not eating dinner. I feel like that would have been a good move. Okay, so we have setup strikes. We want overhead smash. And we want smash through the ranks. So, do I need to pull these all out? Well, actually, maybe not. But it's kind of nice to have them in situ here, at least for the first couple. So, let's take a look at what that would look like if we were to pull those in like this. We have the class deeds tier 1, and this is actually different for every single class. Norman says, how do you manage to survive streaming for so long without dinner? Unbelievable. Well, I did have a healthy portion of Cloudnoten before I began, which is not dinner, but, you know, provides some calories. It's wild to me, and maybe I just never noticed this, but it's wild to me that the local grocery stores stock Cloudnoten this far away from the beginning of December. But on the other hand, if you want a couple of months of retail sales, you kind of got to start in September. But Cinderclass being December 5th here instead of December 25th, just, yeah, that's 20 days earlier that you've got to begin if you want to get that same like lead time compared to Christmas. But still, like this far before Halloween, which isn't as big in the Netherlands, but still, it just feels a little wrong to be stocking December treats. And yet. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and include the names of these things. And we do want these to be at tier 0, 1, 1, 1. Although that's more for our reference here, that's a historical thing. I need to fix how that's done one of these days. Okay, so that's tier 1. It's right before the minstrel. Let's come on over to tier 2. And you know, I want to be tracking this here, that I've done these. So first one, oops, was that, great. We also got those 3 as well. So those 3 are done, ish. Little redhead, not dinner, but still tasty, pretty much. Okay, so tier 2. Let's go grab that. Tier 2, we can pull that out in isolation, and that's going to look like 3 more deeds. And so right before the minstrel, we can go ahead and insert that and get class deeds tier 2. That's me, class Mariner. Okay. And then the 3 below that are these 3 numbers. Cool. So what are those? We're going to start with the first one here. Long distance fling. And hoist that on out. We can see long distance fling. That agrees. So we've probably got the right thing. Next thing, we're expecting serious demeanor. So we're going to go ahead and hoist that out. And the last one was make a mockery. Cool. So that is that one. And same thing, we want to go ahead and track these in the preprocessor as well, because we want to stop excluding these. Great. So now we have those ready to be excluded, but we're going to come back into the spreadsheet first. All right, so we already have the numbers. So we have the names here: long distance fling, serious demeanor, and make a mockery. We're going to remember that these 2 are also tiers 0, 1, 1, 1. Not make a new book. Okay. Cool. So that's everything from here, and we can remove those from the processor. So we're going to move on to tier 3. Let's find that deed. Okay, so we can see right away there's only 2 deeds that you need to complete to satisfy this one. And that probably matches other classes as well. Okay, so that's the Way of the Maelstrom. Great. And that is the Way of the Fulcrum. Awesome. So let's get those into tier 3 before the minstrel. And we can see same thing here, only 2 sub-deeds for that. I'm digging the music in the starting area. Okay, then we grab these names. And the reason I do this intermediary spreadsheet is mostly historical, but it's a way to kind of filter things through and collect data. When I was first starting this, I was collecting data from in-game experiences, from friends, from the LOTRO wiki. And this was a way to kind of centralize all of that. It's definitely a thing that needs to kind of be phased out, but until that happens, it's a convenient way to do some of this. Okay. All right. That is tier 3 there. And we can come on in and clean this up. So what we want to do is tier 4 now. Which is back to completing 3 deeds. Great. All right, rally the fellowship. The TBD class is dance. Well, I sure hope that's been updated at some point. Not in the files I've got. Fascinating. Well, I don't think I have access to any of them right now anyway. But I'm curious if anyone has noticed that that's the way it is in the game. Now, of course, we're pre-release for the Mariner, so it's always expected that there's going to be some little things that aren't quite finished. This is probably one of them. But yeah, I expect it's going to be the Mariner's dance. But until it changes, we have to match what we're expecting here. Okay, and then finally, unflappable. All right, those are the 3 we're working on. All right, so let's get those into the spreadsheet. We're going to tier 4 before the minstrel. All right, we're going to insert those. Guess I should actually pull the real one just in case there's a spelling change. There is not. We're going to go ahead and pull in these IDs. And class, Mariner. Fantastic. And then we're going to go ahead and do just the names here. Rally the Fellowship. The TBD's dance. Oh. I look forward to that being fixed. And unflappable. Awesome. Now, while I'm doing this, this would be a time to go ahead and say, what are we trying to do here? Use quick feint, 100 times per day. Cool. However, I'm trying to get out of the way of doing handwritten summaries. Grab summaries in favor of automatically produced summaries, but it's still a work in progress. And until that's done, it's nice to have those summaries. Okay, so we have all 3 of those, and we can go ahead and clean this up and move on to, nope, that's Mariner Slayer. That's different. We're not going to bother with the Monster Slayers yet. So that's Mariner Slayer, tier 3. Here's tier 2. Tier 1. Alright, Slayer tier 5. Yeah. Tier 4. Let's see. That looks like all of those. Great. Alright, what was I doing? I was doing tier 4, so now we want to do tier 5. Alright, there's 2 deeds to complete in here. Nice. Fast reflexes. And balance. What plugin am I working on? Asks Wool Socks. I am working on the deed tracker plugin, and this is sort of the underlying paperwork, as it were, the bookkeeping that it takes to keep track of new deeds. So we're working on making sure we have updated information for the Mariner deeds to come on into the deed tracker plugin. So right now we're looking at the Mariner class deeds. Class tiers 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so on. So we're up to tier 5 here. And we're just putting them into my intermediary spreadsheet here. Oh, Wilsock says, "Oh, cool! I have that one. Very cool. Nice." Yeah, I'm a completionist myself, and having a plugin to track all of the deeds that I could do and which ones I have done just makes it a little less stressful, because I don't have to worry about, oh, did I get everything? Is the zone clear? Is there some hidden deed? I bet there's a hidden deed. Alright, there is balance. Fantastic. Okay. That was all of this. That was tier 5. So we're going to work on tier 6. Once we've done all the 8 tiers, that'll give us a good sense of what's remaining. That is some of the Moria stuff and whatnot. So doing these first is a nice way to do it. Okay, so we can see. All right, that's where opening move comes in. Okay, so we're going to yoink that. Crowd control, awesome. All right, and last, certainly not least, the proper stance. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and get those into the spreadsheet. We're doing tier 6, so scroll on down, pop them in before minstrel. There's 3 of them here. Tier 6. And get their official names. Now, the names aren't actually necessary, but they are important for comments. And so I'm only grabbing the English ones because these just get generated into comments in the code. So we come look at D data English for, well, sorry, not that. When we look at deed info, we can see all we're really using are the IDs here, or possibly the tiers as well. But the comment that gets produced, this is where this is getting used. And so it's just a human readable thing, because otherwise when you have an issue with deed 626, it's a little bit more challenging than it's like, oh, okay, we're in a moat alluring, got it. Okay. That being said, we have tier 6. So we can go ahead and get rid of these and this and move on to tier 7. Okay, so ultimate techniques, and a leg strike. Let's grab those. Let's make sure we only copy paste the thing we're actually looking for. Alright. And leg strike. Okay, so into our spreadsheet we go. This is tier 7, so we want to come into tier 7 and make some space. Now we only have 2. That is a little bit different from some other classes, but different classes can be a little bit different. For instance, maybe the Bjorning only has 2 on some levels. So the fact that it's a little bit different isn't too surprising, although if they added another one to tier 7 before the full release, I guess I wouldn't be too surprised. Okay, so we're gonna grab these 2 IDs. And we're looking at ultimate techniques and leg strike. I should make a reminder to myself. Preprocessor d descriptions have /qs embedded again. Thought I fixed that once, but oh, I know what I did. Maybe I have ideas on what I did. Okay, so we have that. So we can go ahead and clean this up and move on to tier 8. Okay, that's going to have another 2 deeds. Sharing is caring. And challenge the corrupt. Okay. So, coming on into tier 8, slide it on in. Again, there's only 2 deeds here. That's a little inconsistent with what we would expect, but just because the class is released doesn't mean that they're not still tweaking it. Okay, so I've gone ahead and grabbed those. That really reduces what is left to a more manageable level. So let's go ahead and pull out what we have here so we can take a look at that. Now, Adept, Apprentice, Disciple, and Master all look like landscape difficulty. It really makes me wish I could go straight. I'm going to have to check that out later. I'm curious if these are what you get when you get landscape difficulty. But that's not for right now. For now, we have Art of the Duel. Okay, these are the books. Nice. Alright, what else do we have? Art of the Duel. Shanty Singer's Compendium. That sure sounds like book. Okay, and A Guiding Star book. Yep. Okay, so these are nice analogs. Oh, you know, I don't have today's patch, updated data from today's patch. I bet some of these were fixed in that. Probably a lot of them. I wonder if I could double check for that. Oops. Let's see. Fork. Hey, anything recent? Not yet. Okay. Cool. Not missing anything. So I am going to come back and take a look at that updated data later for some of these TBDs. Okay, I'm sure those got fixed now that I think about it. Okay, so books. All right, so pretty sure these are books. Yeah. So we're going to come on in here before minstrel and make space for these. All right, Art of the Duel. The Shanty Singer's Compendium. And a guiding star. Nice. Alright, that's tier all of it 0. Cool. And the last thing was to check out these adept and whatnot, but pretty sure that's landscape difficulty. Yep, I see it. Okay, so that's 130. Apprentice. Interesting way of representing that. Cool. Chief 50th playing unadventurous or higher. All right. We're going to sort out a order for these. Disciple. It's going to be 50th on fearless. Okay, so that's a little bit higher level. Cool. And this is 130th on adventurous. Cool. So master. 130th on fearless or higher. Cool. So now we need to figure out, those also go under class, but those go under this other section. That is difficulty, yes. All right. So adept of, again, I've got a TBD. I need to replace that. That's okay. Oh, I did it different. Okay, 130th is first. All right, master of, probably the waves or something. And disciple. Yeah, hello, little one. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think? I don't know. I think she's upstairs. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Alright, we got a Casper joining me. And then will that stay? What's up, little one? Hey. Yeah. Did you just come in from outside and you feel wet? Okay. Well, you just sit there. Okay. So, Adept, Apprentice, Master, Disciple, all that's fine. Names to come shortly. And that means we can come on into our preprocessor and say, you know what, that's all done. So the last thing is these Slayer deeds. And we do actually have those somewhere. But first, let's go ahead and make sure that we have this represented in our data file. At a certain point, these data files are going to get too big, and then I'm going to have a solution for that. But I'm sure they'll stop adding deeds. Perhaps not. Okay, that. Hang on a second. It just occurred to me, I forgot to list these. Class, Mariner, class, and yes. I'm going to want that later. All right. That's our updated data file information. So, in deed info, we have class. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and replace this whole block of 400 and something entries. Something that's very similar. Now, if we come and take a look at what that looks like, we can see that we inserted things 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different times, 9 different times for the adept stuff, and the rest of these changes are just these indices here. But nature of it. Okay, so updated race and class names for Mariner and River Hobbit. Race and class names, numbers for Mariner, River Hobbit. Yeah, we got that. Okay, so we're going to take everything except that very top bit. Great. Added Mariner deeds to... Oh, we're not done though. Now that those are out of here, we can go ahead and do our preprocessor. And it can hopefully generate everything we need everywhere else. Should probably have stashed this other stuff. Okay, that looks all good. And we can see we've got a bunch of Mariner changes coming in. What does that look like? Well, interesting. Feed info strings. All right, the names to lookups get updated. The objective information is updated. The data information is updated, including whole new blocks of information. And what that should mean is that if we reload this in the game, we should be able to see that for ourselves, because we are Mariners. Or we'll see error messages. That would also be sad. Alright, so we come into class. Yes. Now we don't have our tier information yet. That's going to come. But if we don't include things above character level, that's going to rule out a bunch of those, and actually most of the class deeds as well. Okay, so we need to go ahead and make a reminder. Grab summaries, grab tiers. Excellent. Cool. But we're going to say that we have added first, added a Mariner class deeds. So, get all that, not that, not that, but these and these. Awesome. So we can go ahead and close this, get that as well, and we can get rid of this debug output, or debug statement there. And there we are, we're back to here. And in fact, I should go ahead and consider, I don't know, if I stage that, can I then stash? I'm not sure if you can do partial stashes the way I want, so we'll come back to that. Okay. Delirian says, sorry, came in late. You are updating deed tracker to include Mariner, I suppose. That is what is happening. And Casper is, I don't know, eating yarn or something. Yeah, so I've made a Mariner. Now I need to, one of the things I need to fix is how I encode the tier information, how far things are indented. Right now, it is more separate than I want it to be, but it is doable. It's just not the way I like to do it. It was one of those, this is a fast way to do it, not the right way to do it. Mariner. So we're going to keep doing it the fast way, and we'll circle back around to that later. So the fast way is we're going to grab the things that we want indented, and it'll be pretty fast. Now, hopefully, since we are ignoring this historical field here, it gives us a nice indication of which ones we care about. So, one of the things I like to do is go ahead and give the names of the deeds as comments for what is this thing, so it's a little bit easier to track. So the thing that we're trying to set up is this structure here. That's going to go into this array in Visual Studio. It's just a C# array. So for each one of these, we're just getting the IDs and the names. Then we can just do a multi-select to go ahead and move them where we want to. Just like that. Don't need to save. Oh, haha, that was the wrong one though. That's minstrels. So let's go on to tier 2. So Mariner and names for Mariner. And again, we can go ahead and do a multi-select. And we're done. Tier 3. All right, multi-select will be the name of the game for today. Let's not finish setting up. Tier 4. So again, I need to update, get updated data files so that these TBDs get resolved. But for now, we can make progress. All right, tier 5. Tier 6. Probably work for English client. Well, we'll have updated data files, hopefully in the not too distant future. And so auto detection of deeds will wait until we have those matching informations. But it should be, as soon as they're available, I should be able to incorporate them and do the release so that English, French, and German releases go out all together for dtracker. Then it is just a question of, is SSG, does SSG have 100% on each of the 3 languages, or are any of them lagging? But it shouldn't affect the dtracker performance right now. Nope, I keep wanting to save it, but I don't want to save that. Alright, sharing is caring, challenge the corrupt. Alright, that's tier 8, and the rest of these do not have a tier, so we are... Oh, nope, this does. Darren says, did I notice the name for Central Gondor changed in the German client? I did not notice that. Let's go ahead and submit this over to my code first. Will that also be updated when the data files are updated? It depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about over here, the name for this tab changes in the German client, and I assume you mean the release that just happened today, then that's going to require a little work. But yeah, that'll be something I include in this release. But I hadn't seen that change in the data files so far. So do you mean that happened like in a previous week's patch or today's patch? Okay. All right, so we have our tier information here. Excellent. So we can go ahead and be rid of that. Great. Added tier information for Mariner class deeds. Let's get a look of that. Okay, so now we can see the Mariner class deeds are properly indented the way we want them to. That's on my to-do list to fix, but it's not going to be a today fix. Okay. What else, if anything? So today, really the last couple of days, I've just been trying to get back up to speed with life, as it were. So I think this could be a good breaking point, or we're coming up on it. So Julian, I know you just got here. I'm glad you made it. So I guess if anyone has any last minute questions, comments, concerns, now's a good time to get them into chat while the cats are being fed chicken in the background and crying for it. And we'll be slowly working our way towards the end of this stream. Okay, so where are we? We have a few things that are for the future. And so what I want to do is see if I can do a stash of a stage. Stage that, and stage that. So these are just monster play, that idea. And this is stash 5. Yeah, this is Western King's Gondor. Initial changes. Can I do that? I cannot. It included the monster plane. That's too bad. Hmm. You notice the name for Central Gondor seems to have changed from Zentrum Gondor to Zentrum Van Gondor. You know, actually, that might have been picked up since it was changes in deed names. So let's take a look at that. Yes. Yes. So Aufgaben in Zentrum Gondors is now Aufgaben in Zentrum Van Gondor. Now, it sounds like you're saying that the tab name also changed. So if you went to Gondor in here, if you hover over this or look at this, do you see Centrum Van Gondor up there? Because if that's the case, I should update my in-game for deed tracker to be the same thing. Let me pull that up. Zentrum Van Gondor. Okay, so we should expect that to have changed. Let me go ahead and get back to here. Deed info strings, probably. Centrum Van Gondor. Oh, apparently I already called it Zentrum Van Gondor. Interesting. I don't recall doing that, but neat. So I'm wondering if it's been Zentrum Van Gondor for a while and they just finally circled back around to update the deed names. So yes, that is going to be a part of this next release. Yes, Tillerian, you're correct. The region detection depends on chat messages, but the first and foremost is, do we have an exact name for the deed? And because these deeds are, Slayer of Central Gondor or Explorer of Central Gondor, those kinds of things, they got more specific. Orc Slayer of Western Gondor. The need to know which region you're in got a lot less. That being said, good point. Let's come into regional info. Central Gondor, Zentrum Gondors. Yes, I did not have it here. Zentrum Van Gondor. Thank you for reminding me of this. And this really, I should have a way to automatically generate this region info in case of changes like that. Consider how to automatically generate the language specific parts of region info.lua. So, thank you for reminding me that that's another thing to toss onto the large pile of things to do. Okay, so we got the tiers for the Mariner. Awesome. Need to grab the Lua number. Yes. I don't know if the preprocessor needs that, but done and done. Needed, question mark, needed, question mark, and cool. Tillerian says, I really wondered why I got debug messages like dtracker thinks you moved from X to unknown. Well, two reasons. I suspect that's partially because you are running with verbose logging on. I don't think regular users see that. If they do, that's a mistake. And yeah, absolutely. There are some regions that I just don't know about. You're always welcome to shoot them to me and say, hey, this doesn't work. Region detection got less important as we moved into level 100 plus content. Because they started doing region-specific names for deeds. So when you have deeds of let's say quests of Lamadan, that's not a good one. Bandit Slayer of West Gondor, Beast Slayer of West Gondor, Corsair Slayer of West Gondor. It doesn't matter what region you're in now because that's going to be an exact name. It was when you were back in Eriador in the North Downs and you had North Downs, and you had Troll Slayer, Orc Slayer, Goblin Slayer. You're killing me, Slayer. And so if you search for Wolf Slayer, there are lots of them. Even more so if you do Warg Slayer. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Warg Slayers just in Eriador alone. So that's why knowing what region you are was very important in the 1 to 100 range. once they start to do of West Gondor or of the East of the West and that kind of thing, it stops being as necessary. Then you just have the sort of the random named things like Eyes of the Enemy, where it's a creative name. That's odd. Trollshaws? Oh, it's a quest in Trollshaws. Of course, it's in Ravanian. When you have things that are a little less, a little more generic, like Eyes of the Enemy, which I would swear is in Moria. That's okay. Doesn't matter. Julian says, I know I do dabble with the data files as well, currently doing a summary for LOTRO Companion-data, but need to sort out quests that were never in-game or are no longer obtainable. For instance, a Ranger's Offensive. Yes, figuring out which deeds are still obtainable is a big thing. Hey, string tooltip window, attempt to call mouse move and no value. Cool. I love getting bugs that give me a line number. All right, we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. String tooltip window. This is a window. Why wouldn't it exist? Okay. So, fascinating. All right, well, 51. Mouse move. If self. I don't even know if that's worth. I don't know. I got to think about that. That seems bizarre, and yet it obviously happened. And if it can happen to me, it could happen to anyone. What caused this? All right. Fantastic. McCoy says, does buying the Corsair's Outlander expansion give you access to all the previous ones? New player here. Eldoleth has jumped in with no. However, in the expansion, the content for what was expansions 1 through 100, I think, is freely available to free-to-play players, whether or not you've bought them. You can play the game, you can play the content. So that takes you level 1 to 100, takes you up to Gondor, if not beyond. And so you can get a lot of gameplay without necessarily needing to spend any real-world money. Your mileage may vary. There's a lot of nice-to-have features in the game that can be bought with LOTRO points, which you can earn in-game, or you can spend real money to get them. One of the things Deed Tracker does that I really like is shows you how many LOTRO points are available in a specific area. For instance, I could earn 135 LOTRO points in Breeland, 150 in the Shire, 130 in Ered Luin, and so on. So we can see if I completed all of the deeds in Eriador, I could earn 790 LOTRO points. And there are some people who have more time than they have money, so they'll create a character, they'll do the first however many regions, and then they'll just delete the character. And they'll have gotten a few hundred LOTRO points, maybe 500, and call it a day. And that gets them all the LOTRO points they want without having to spend any real-world money. Because they enjoy the game, they enjoy the gameplay, but they don't have that expendable income. And that's totally understandable. Well, thank you to everyone who's jumped in here at the last few minutes. I think we are rapidly hitting my stopping point. So I'm going to go ahead and check my to-do list here. I'm not sure if anyone else is streaming after me today. Let's see. Is it singular or plural? Tuesdays. Tuesday. There we go. Mailing's still on the schedule. If so, they're at 9 p.m. server time, last I heard. And join them for adventuring back to Rohan. Other than that, that is... Oh, neat. Tellurian has listed specific expansions that are available now that are not included in the free content. Thank you for popping that in there. Mordor 105 plus, 3 Peaks 130, Minas Ithil 130, Gundabad 140, Before the Shadow 1 to 32, and now Umbar 140 plus are the expansions that come to mind. Awesome. And with that, that is, Dude says thank you for the stream. You learned a lot. Awesome. I'm glad you were here. That is all we are going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you all here in 2 weeks, because next week I am traveling, so I cannot get back to a regular rhythm quite yet. So I hope to see you all here in 2 weeks' time, and until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.